Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm your host, Henri Arslanian, and welcome to this episode of the Future Money Podcast. Before we start, I want to say a big thank you to the 500,000 of you who follow my content each week. This podcast, The Future Money, is now ranked in the top 5% of all podcasts globally on Spotify. Thousands of you from over 160 countries are tuning in each week. So a massive thank you for all your support. Today's episode is a very special one. As those of you who follow me on LinkedIn know, I published during the Christmas holidays some episodes of me behind the scenes of how I get ready when I go speak to an event, how I get ready behind the scenes before I do my TV appearances with media, and also some behind the scenes video and advice on how to be a good moderator. And it's interesting because I got many requests. I got about 15 requests or so, a dozen or 15 requests of you, which is a question I've never received before. One of them was how to become a good attendee at conferences. I'm going to a lot of crypto conferences. Sometimes I feel I'm not getting the most out of it. And we decided we should do an event where we can bring actually people who organize these crypto conferences and have to hear from them, not only how they organize these events, but also the advice they have to attendees and speakers as well. So very original episode we're going to have today. And for this, we have Mr. Michael Amar, who's a founder and chairman of Paris Blockchain Week, as well as Raise Summit, who's joining us. Michael, great to have you with us on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, one thing people may not know about Michael, obviously many you may know him as the founder of and the chairman of Paris Blockchain Week, is that he's also a massive tennis fan. And when he's not organizing the event, you may see him on a tennis court. And actually, Patrick Mouratoglou, the former coach of Serena Williams, is actually an investor in Paris Blockchain Week, which is something I just learned, which is great piece of intel from that perspective. Michael, great to have you on the show. And for everybody on listening as well, for full disclosure, the Paris Blockchain Week is supporting this episode, is partnering for this episode. So we're able to really go deep and discuss some of these events. And really big thank you to Paris Blockchain Week for supporting education in crypto. Michael, before we start talking about how you guys organize these events and the advice that you have for attendees, can you maybe share a bit about yourself and also about Paris Blockchain Week and what is the event and how big has it become right now?
Yeah, sure. So myself, I'm an entrepreneur, dropped out of school at 21 years old, business school, and created the first web agency back in the time. And that led to a couple more companies in the digital space. And I've merged them and sold them to a French public company back in 2007. They had an office for R&D in Palo Alto, California, where I did my earnout under the sun, but surrounded by the best talent in the world. And in 2009, I actually saw that Facebook was launching a first token. It was the grandfather of Libra. It was called Facebook Credit. And I created a company and a platform that allowed people to get incentivized with a digital token, Facebook digital token. Back at the time, it was very early, it was pre-blockchain days, but that led me to understand virtual currencies, direct deposit, instant gratification, all the keywords that we are now, living with in the Web3 era. So that was 2009, and I moved back to France in 2017 when I've launched the first blockchain accelerator in Europe. It was called the Chain Accelerator, which I sold after a couple of years. But in the meantime, I was able to pitch a lot of large projects all around the world and wanted to be their headquarters for Europe. And people were kind of making fun of me, saying, Michael, you're nice, but crypto in Europe, in Paris, we like Paris for luxury, for food, but not really for crypto. So after a few times, that pissed me off a little bit. And I decided to do a B2B event to help show the European ecosystem and show that actually there was potential collaboration between the corporates that were active, between the regulators that were open-minded, and the talent and engineering talent. And so that was the initiation. And fast forward to this 5th edition, now Paris Blockchain Week has become a big baby. We have 30 employees all the year long working on this week of events. So we're gathering over 10,000 people. The week of April 8th. The speakers we have are, most of the founders of the big exchanges, of the big blockchains, but we're also opening up to, the traditional finance, like JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs will be there, or MasterCard. Same way as the brands like BMW or Rolex, right? This is a kind of people who try to contribute as much as we can to the mass market adoption, and this goes by not being in silo and incestuous crypto bros to crypto bros, but really opening it to the world. So it's a full week of event coming up in very soon.
It's amazing. I mean, actually 10,000 people, it's no joke. And one thing I love about your event, and I had the privilege to be speaker, and I'll be speaking again this year as well, is really the big event, the dinner you guys organize, at the Louvre the day before. But how complicated is it to rent the Louvre? Is it one that you need access? You have to go pay the fees? I mean, there must be process of, like little Henri cannot go probably rent the Louvre tomorrow morning.
The process goes with a lot of zeros, to be honest. That are things that are a little bit complicated. So there's two things, right? There is the actual convention center that is below the Louvre.
Yep.
And where we have some flexibility, it's okay to create the booth and the experience. And then we have this amazing dinner that we do on the ninth evening, which is under the pyramid. And we actually privatize the Louvre because it's closed on Tuesdays. It's the day in the week. So we privatize it all, and we have our VIPs to come and have a private visit of the masterpiece wing. My pitch is that you can basically date Mona Lisa, and it's quite an experience. There's no 10,000 tourists between you and her, and you can really enjoy all the big pieces of art. And then the dinner is just fantastic, and it is complicated. For example, the kitchen is so far from the pyramid is that we need to have heaters in the way. And you have to have the heaters ready for the 500 meals to come at the same time. So I'm very happy I'm not involved with operations, but it is nerve-wracking on sometimes. They're very adamant on how you can put the signage, how you do this, and how to use the stairs, and where you can do pictures and not do pictures. A lot of restrictions.
I was not even aware the Louvre was closed on Tuesday. Here we go. Another particularity of France and its museum network. But actually, Michael, you raise a very good point, which is that there's obviously a lot of work that goes behind organizing a crypto event, any event actually. And what I find very interesting is that I've had the privilege over the years of, as a speaker, to work with many conference organizers, including yourself. But I don't think that the average attendee knows how much work that goes in months and months before an event takes place. Can you maybe walk us through, for example, for an event like you guys have, how big is your team? How long before you guys start preparing, and a bit of the process, so that actually us, when we go attend, we can maybe appreciate a bit more all the hard work that went into organizing it.
Yeah, so I think I can share a few tips, perhaps, because I'm not a conference, raised and born a conference organizer, right? It started just 4 years ago. And before that, I've attended hundreds of conferences all over the world. This is how I built my network and my businesses, leveraging these conferences. So I try to use what I've learned as an attendee to try to create the best experience for my guests. Yeah, we have 30 people full-time all year long, just for 1 week. 30 FTEs, yeah. Why is that? Is you really need 9 months to operate such a big conference. And you can, a lot of companies are working with freelancers, but when you think about it, when you have a good employee, even if for 3 months he can relax a little bit, then he have 9 months intensive, it's perhaps better than let someone go and finding someone else who needs to be good with not the same experience. You haven't shared the same things. It gets so stressful in the last few weeks before the conference, because shit always happens in the industry, is that you really see how people are capable. And if you have people that can resist to the stress with the no sleep for days, and you see them, it's like going to war, right, with someone, and you see how they're reacting to those very stressful moments. And if they're good, you don't want to let them go. They're the best team players that you want to be surrounded by to run the conference. So it's why we took the decision. It cost us a little bit more, but to have a constant team working all year long on the operations.
It's incredible. I don't think people realize that you have 30 people working all year long for one event, for literally a couple of days, which is absolutely incredible. I think this is why a lot of work. When you guys are organizing such a big event, from all of the elements, which is the logistics, the ticket sales, getting the speakers, doing the content, what is the one element that takes the most time, that is the most time consuming, that is also the most underappreciated by attendees?
Yeah, it's all the gazillion little things, right? So I think we use this tool like Monday.com, task management, and I think there is There's perhaps 10,000 entries
Wow.
of tasks that needs to be done. So it's like, okay, the signage, okay, how do people get to this room, to the other room? How do you put the speaker room close to the master stage? What there is a wall in between them? How do you, have the food come warm? How do you access the day before what there is the Marathon de Paris, which is blocking the whole city? And how do you turn around? So I would say it's a lot of very small tasks that are operational. And the rest that you don't see necessarily is that we need to exist the rest of the year. And unlike other perhaps event companies, we don't have a media. So we get a lot of traction on social media, but only 6 weeks before the conference, right? So the rest of the year, how do we exist? And this is by going to other conferences, by lobbying, by creating deep relationship. And you don't see this, I would say, from the outside.
Interesting. So if you had to give one piece of advice to an attendee to a crypto or AI event or other conferences, what is the one piece of advice you would give to them to ensure that they can maximize the cost of their ticket or the insights and the learning they're getting from that event?
Yeah. So, I mean, it will be a same answer for many questions you can ask. It's preparation. Yes, you can show up and have your, impromptu meetings that can be amazing, but you leave it to chance. So try to leave in your agenda some time for chance to happen, but it's better to provoke it. So it's kind of easy with the networking tools, with looking at a LinkedIn event of the conference, with attending, and just look at the hashtag of the conference the few weeks before and try to get the meetings in advance, right? And then if it's people that is hard to approach, look at what time they're going on stage, try to reach out to them after they leave the stage or what they're getting in or out of the speaker room. Try to be sniper in your approach to create these occasions.
It's so true because, even the events that I attend, I would always prepare. Like I even refuse now to attend a conference where there's not a good speaking conference app, where I'm not able to find the attendees. I'm not able to reach out because I find that a lot of the work happens behind the scenes. And if you're not doing it and just showing up, I think you're losing out on a lot of it. So that's on the networking side. And then, a big thing for a lot of conferences is the speakers. So can you maybe share with us, how do you guys decide on who you want to speak and the topics that you guys want to cover in an event, especially that you have to prepare months in advance?
Yeah, the months in advance is tough because sometimes there's a new topic coming in and you have to address it. So it's hard to be, in the news and at the same time thinking long time in advance. But there are trends, right? Ordinals, you don't want to miss it, right? It became a topic. NFTs are not in the best place right now, and ordinals is kind of giving oxygen to this space. So you want to address it. So how do you address it? Who are the leaders of the industry? It happened that the winner of our startup competition last year is the biggest Bitcoin wallet, Xverse, the company. So they're going to come on stage and they know well the ecosystem around ordinals, and they can point us to who are the best speakers potential, biggest players in the ordinals ecosystem. And that will help us curate and create that panel, for example. Or, we're talking about Lightning, Bitcoin, not Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin good for payment? Then we say, okay, we go to David Marcus. Hey, David, I think your voice is needed. You're kind of the flag holder for this industry. So come and speak, right? So we try to be on the news, but we also know that there are trends, whatever happens, like regulation, we need to help to address it, right? Yeah. And in Europe, MiCA is such a big topic, and that we need to address it. And this takes a long time to convince the regulators to come because it's very heavy paperwork processes to get them.
Actually, yeah, you're right. Because inviting government official, there's a whole different protocol on how you do it. It's not like just emailing the person. I mean, how complicated is it?
I know we host a minister every year, and he will change the agenda 20 times in one day. So usually what they want to do, they want to come with all their tribe, and they want to have that specific meeting at that specific time, and change it 20 times. But the other people they want to meet are big guys, and they also have their agenda, and you have to juggle and manage the personalities. There's a very big process on how you take the person, you put them on stage, you put them to that meeting, and you take them to the other meeting. Yeah. But now we're used to it. It's one of the reasons we need a big team.
Yeah, exactly. I think like everything else, the more you do it, they would experience a lot of things happen, and naturally. I mean, the question I get also a lot from my audience is, and I've been trying to create videos like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode of how to be a good speaker, how to prepare. For example, I mentioned this. A lot of people, often people are surprised, but when I give a keynote, and I've often given, I've done hundreds of keynotes over the years, but that particular keynote that I will give at any event, I'll always tweak it, often 1 or 2 days to make sure it's relevant to that audience and that day. Often there's news that happens in crypto, but I will always rehearse it, and I have a video of how I do behind the scenes. I wake up, I'll make sure I exercise, I train my voice before I go on stage. And there's literally for my 20-minute keynote, there's hours of preparation that goes in, and there's hours that same morning that I'll prepare. And I've tried to share this, and many people have watched that video over the years. When you as an organizer, you're looking at speakers, um, what makes a good speaker in your opinion? What are the things in our audience and listeners today, people give speeches all the time and they go present. What is the one advice you have to anybody who's going to become a speaker, and the do's and the don'ts you think they should know?
Yeah. So the thing is that it's not an easy question, because either you're a star, and I won't name, but you're not, a natural speaker, right? But your brain, and you're just a genius, and people want to hear from your brain, whatever way it comes out. And there's nothing we can do to help you on that. We try to, obviously, we have a very strict process on preparation. There is the moderator will call you a month in advance to do one prep, then you have the prep with all the other panelists if you're in a panel. And so we check the questions and make sure that everybody feels comfortable addressing every topic is going to be addressed. So that's what we do to help prepare the content side of things. Obviously, I've been to conferences where they even go, proposing like media training and speech training, and we're not doing that. So to answer clearly your question, what I like the most is when there is something personal that the speakers, bring, because it creates something that people don't hear usually, and you connect with the room a little bit better. If you can tap into something newsworthy, people will tweet about it, will interact with it on the spot. So it creates a buzz that, is good for the speaker, is good for the audience that is engaged, and it's good for us because we're creating this ecosystem of knowledge around it. So I would say if you can be personal, have something relevant to say towards the news, and then you can captivate, and you're a very good speaker. And if you understand what you said earlier is very important, to understand who is in the room to make this connection.
Yeah, it's such an important point, right? Where whenever I tell people about this, I always say, you got your audience, the people sitting in front of you are giving 20 minutes or 25 minutes of their life in front of you. So this is time they're never going to get again. So you better give them value for that time. And I still find it very unacceptable that, Frank, a lot of people will go on stage unprepared or on panels. And I think it's very disrespectful. The day you start disrespecting your audience or not taking seriously, it's the beginning of the end. Like you said, unless you're a superstar and people are always going to listen to you. But I think for 99.9% of people, that's often a problem. One other question I want to ask you, Michael, which, I've had this debate with many people over the years in the conference world, is I personally believe that the two most important people at any conference, let's say on the show side or the client-facing side, is first the MC over the day, who's managing between panels, and second is the moderator of a panel. I even have a video on how to be a good moderator, which has obviously done very, very well as well, but which I find whenever you have a terrible moderator, it really destroys the energy of the audience. How do, as an organizer, you guys look at these key people that make or break a show?
So the MC is really, he needs to want to get attention from people, to motivate them, to excite them. But he also needs, and you don't see that, to be super well prepared, because we have, 60 or 80 speaker on his stage with a very, you cannot be late. It needs to be on time, and it needs to be very smooth for the transition. So it's someone who should be aware of the time constraint and we're completely engaged also in presenting well, introducing the next panel. And then back to the moderator, sometimes he can have speakers that won't, be very open, and it will be kind of a flat, and you want to get more information. So he needs to create an atmosphere where he can find, a way for people to open up a little bit. That's perhaps the most difficult thing, I would say, as a moderator. But he also needs to understand very intimately the topics we're talking about. But otherwise, if he cannot challenge, if he's just having his question on his iPad and it's flat, he needs to be able to say, okay, but you just say that, but I saw that, or this one is saying that. So you need to understand what you're doing, basically.
Yeah, and it's so important as well. I think getting those that somebody's a good moderator, understands the topic, can challenge the guest is always a tricky element. I can imagine how difficult this is for people like you are trying to organize these events. I want to ask you about more of I don't know if it's a sensitive question or not, but we get approached, even myself from our hedge fund, for example, people will approach us and say, hey, do you guys want to speak at this event? It's X thousand dollars. There's a whole industry from magazine covers to events where it's a pay to play. You pay the money, you're able to get a spot. And there's other events where there's the sponsorship is completely separated from the editorial arm, if you want. What's your view in the industry and the future of the events industry when it comes to pay-to-play events, where people are paying to get a snub, to be under the spotlight?
So there's two questions in your question. So one is, if you're a leader industry, we invite you. There's no doubt. People want to hear. We want to listen to you. You come for free, for sure. If you're one of 10,000 startups, and there is perhaps 1,000 that are very good, at some point we need to make a choice, right? So we don't sell per se hey, here's 5, 10, 15, 20K to speak. But if you're engaged in a conference, you're a partner, you take a booth, and we might tend to offer you also the possibility to speak. But to be honest with you, it's less than 10% of our revenues, the people who will pay for speaking.
Yeah.
More generally on that front, which my dream in terms of business model is that the event company doesn't charge for ticketing, doesn't charge for speaking, doesn't charge for any sponsoring. But obviously there's a but. I'm not a philanthropist on that side of things. The but is that we get a cut on everything that's going on to a conference, which means you hire someone, I get a cut. You get a client, I get a cut. You raise fund, I get a cut. We know how many, hundreds of deals I made during the 3 days. We know it. We have the feedbacks. People raised from Tim Draper just because they came and they were fanboy of Tim Draper before, or they found their partner and now they're doing the unicorn. And other people get married. We got that too. We won't ask for a commission, but that's the dream because so many transactions that you cannot track, right? So think about a smart contract. We put you a chip.
Yeah.
Tac.
I'm thinking about that actually. This is a great Web3 idea where people come in and you're right. That's real, genuinely value creation, right? And then there's a competition between events where there's a more value creation. People will naturally go towards there, right?
You already have finder's fee agreement. You already have an affiliate program of some sort, referral.
Of course.
So it's nothing new, right? Everybody wins and is in the same mindset of making a deal.
Interesting. What is the most magical? You mentioned the wedding now. What is the most magical event or memorable event as an entrepreneur in the crypto, creation event, event organizing you've had over the last couple of years?
So humble brag, I will start with one that we manage. I think it's the best crypto event in the industry. We do have this dinner under the Louvre, the pyramid, which is just phenomenal. The fact that you can look at this masterpiece wing, you have your private guide explaining you, and you're with 500 of the best people from the industry, it's something unique. Then I've attended events everywhere, and perhaps the one I like also, it's when it's pretty intimate, 300, 400 people. I've been at Fortune conference in Aspen. It's very good quality, only executives. It was also kind of laid back in the mountains and team building activities. That I liked that format too.
Interesting. And like you said, there must be so many events that took place even at the Paris Blockchain Week, right? So the events and deals that takes place, I think it's very ironic because ironically, I think people, despite everything that happens with technology, people still want to meet face to face. They want to have these business interactions, and that's not going to go away from that perspective. Which brings it to something I wanted to bring up, which really at the beginning of COVID in 2020, Michael, I was convinced that the in-person interactions were going to go down. We were all going to be in metaverses, all online events. And really, I was very convinced that the future of the event industry was going to be radically different. And what I realized, I have to say, over the last 2 years is I was wrong. And actually, people, despite, you can have Zoom meetings, you can have virtual meetings, you could have hybrid jobs, but there's a genuine need that people want to meet face to face. What's your view on the future, let's say, event organizing and events in, let's say, in the crypto industry, but other industries as well, and the roles that like new enablers like the metaverse, for example, could have, and will they change the events industry as we know it, or it'll be more or less the same?
If you take the ESG criteria, if you take the technology is going to be better, you would think that, yes, there will be more and more conferences happening online, but I don't think we can ever replace, whatever Apple Vision Pro version you have or MetaQuest. But this is something, the fluid of shaking a hand, of bumping into people from conference to conference and creating this relationship. It's not the same thing. I don't create a relationship with you pixelized, but when I can, give a high five or interact with you over a glass of whiskey. So I think as a salesperson, which I've been all my life, it will never be the same. Perhaps I'm old school, but I don't think it can ever be the same. But I think the technology will improve. We were the first one in Europe to use Hopin at the time when there was COVID. 1 month before the conference, we switched to Hopin. And actually the stats were pretty intriguing because we got... on average, people got connected 8 hours over 2 days. That was a lot. But also, everybody was stuck at home. So,
yeah.
But one of the functions that worked the best and kept, I think, saved our butt, to be honest, and kept people engaged, there was a speed dating function. And that was kind of similar to a conference where sometimes the speed dating, if you're a big guy and it's a small guy in front of you, usually the small guy have no chance to reach out to you. But let's say he shake your hand briefly. And sometimes the guy is very talkative and you're the big guy and you don't want to be, brutal with him. And you but here it was 30 seconds. You could parameter 1 minute. So here I am, this is what I do. Is there any interest for you or someone in your team you can introduce me to? Then even if you're a big guy, say, okay, talk at ben.xyz. And then then it's it. And then you can go to the next one and the next one and the next one. So if you go one step further into this quick moment that makes the introduction with the relevant people, and the big guys also took the fun because it wasn't painful for them to be, hooked with 37 or 1 minute. It's not like someone is bothering you on a corner, you cannot leave. So I think the speed networking with criteria and predefined interest will be interesting.
Interesting, huh? It's like it's crazy data that when 8 hours over 2 days, it's very interesting data on that side and how it went. But I think you're right that the in-person element is not going away. I would even argue that, and I don't know what you think, but especially with generative AI and a lot of the deep fakes that we're having right now, ironically, and I know it's very ironic, it may push even more people to want to meet face to face because of that deep fake element that is there. I mean, it's really
never thought of that, but it's interesting.
Yeah, how it's evolving. Well, Michael, we're coming out of time already, but I want to ask you one next question about, obviously, you guys have been organizing these crypto events, and as an entrepreneur, it's very interesting that now you're able to use your entrepreneurial skills in organizing these crypto, the Paris Blockchain Week, but you're also organizing the Raise Summit, which is more on the artificial intelligence world. I'm sorry. How are you finding, is organizing an event in the field of AI different from the field of crypto, or anything different that popping up that you guys didn't expect beforehand?
Yeah, so we decided, it was a decision we took less than 2 months ago, so it's very, very new. We're doing this Raise Summit on April 8th. Actually, we're leveraging the fact that we're having, hundreds of CIOs, CTOs coming for Paris Blockchain Week, and they're obviously looking at AI. So we got a chance to talk with the biggest players of the industry, from NVIDIA to HP to Lenovo, Microsoft, and we realized that it's a very different crowd in the sense that it's way more corporate. In our space, I can close a deal on Telegram in 3 days. good luck with that on AI, because it's more you need a tie and you need the good handbag to go there. It's it's yearly budget. It's very organized. It's the big tech companies that are driving AI today, which was not the case for crypto. So it's totally a different, as a conference organizer, totally a different crowd, much more organized, much more processed. Everything is super slick. There's not the craziness of crypto. On the other hand, I found them pretty agile for everything speaking, because there's a need to, showcase your product, your advancement, and how you participate to this new economy. So we're being able to have the best speakers we would have never thought that are already coming for our first edition. Can I add one more thing? Sorry.
Of course.
It's about our. I'm pretty proud of our startup competition. We're having a startup competition with over $10 million in prizes. I think it's the biggest one ever, and perhaps in terms of all industry. We have perhaps 30 VCs that are committing to funding. There is grants. There is Tim Draper will give a big show for the winners. It's going to be on TV. So it's a very good experience for those who can attend on the 11th of April.
That's amazing, on the 11th of April. So actually, Michael, we're going to go to the round of question. My bell is with me. And I want to ask you quick questions. I want 1 or 2 word answers. And the bell is here to keep us honest and make sure we're on track. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so Michael, what's the best speaker you've ever seen on stage?
You.
Outside of me, a part of me.
One word, fast and honest.
a part of me, not somebody else you've seen that really impressed you.
Wow, there's many. I think I like Tim Draper. He did a dance last year. It was cool.
If there is one place, a venue you would love to organize an event one day, a dream place, where would that place be?
Honestly, I love being at the Louvre.
Louvre, here we go. That's the French side. What is the most difficult thing with organizing an event in France or in Paris?
Praying for no strikes.
No strikes. Well, on the other hand, what's your favorite thing about living in France?
I think it's pretty central to a lot of people. We have this mix between the corporates, the talent, investment now. So it's a very good time and place, and even regulators are active.
Wow, interesting. You're a big tennis player. Who's your favorite tennis player of all time?
I think Federer.
Here we go. What is the one thing you like the most about the crypto industry?
Craziness. No, the fact it's super international. And that's what I love the most. Completely decentralized, crazy, international.
So you've been an entrepreneur your life. You had successful exits. What's the one advice you give to any crypto entrepreneur?
Do know what you're doing it. Do you do it for money? Do you do it for the ego? Do you do it for... What's your reason behind it, rational? And keep this in mind all your career.
The purpose. What is the one CEO today you admire the most? One CEO of any public or private company you admire the most?
There's one. He's a friend, but I like his journey as an entrepreneur. It's David Marcus. I'm a big fan.
Of course. Who was behind Libra actually before launching on his own venture. So the French French president invites you for lunch. What is the one question you ask him?
What's your plan for crypto?
Michael, if you could go back in history, at any period in history you can go back and live, which period would you want to go back?
Wow. How do you say Moyen Âge en anglais?
Middle Ages.
Yeah, I think I'd like that.
Why is that? Why the Middle Ages?
Craziness to conquer new frontiers, to defend your home. I mean, yeah, entrepreneurs, right?
I love it. And Michael, to finish it off with a traditional question on the Future of Money podcast, Michael, if you could have lunch or dinner with one person, dead or alive, if you could have lunch or dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Ben Gurion.
Ben Gurion. Oh, interesting. In Israel.
Yeah.
Wow, very, very interesting. What's the one question you would ask Ben-Gurion, David Ben-Gurion?
Yeah. What he will do right now with the current situation in Middle East.
I would love to hear his answer too. That was Michael Amar, the founder and chairman of Paris Blockchain Week. Michael, if people want to find out more about the Paris Blockchain Week, where can they go and how can they find out more about you and the event you guys do there?
ParisBlockchainWeek.com, and for the AI it's RaiserSummit.com.
And for actually, so really, thank you very much for powering this episode, Paris Blockchain Week for powering this episode. And for all of you listeners, if you want to attend, there's a special 20% discount code. Basically, if you go on the website of Paris Blockchain Week, just use Henri 20, Henri, the French way, it's in Paris, 2020. Guys, thank you very much, and hope this was a useful episode. I know many of you were asking about this topic. Now we went behind the scenes of a crypto event, and hopefully it was quite useful. Thank you very much, everybody, and see you all soon for another episode of the Future Money Podcast. See you guys.
Thank you.